Marilyn Monroe Show on Jess Tv Live. You can stream that every Sunday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube TV, Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, Meta TV, and the NCG Television Network in Lethbridge, Canada. Tremendous project with over distribution. Again, my name is David Monroe. I'm an actor and soundtrack, also the nephew of Marilyn Monroe, the iconic Hollywood legendary actress and soundtrack. Also our grandfather, Jack Stubbs, legendary Hall of Fame, prolific pioneering film director. Best of friends with Walt Disney and Elizabeth Taylor's manager, giving you cast and turn roles in great Cleopatra and Caesar, as you recollect, some iconic films from. Working with all of the legendary, great and iconic film actresses and actors back in the day. Dean Martin from the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra. He was an actor. Raquel Welch, Judy Garland, from The Wizard of Oz, the 1939 film that was filmed at 5A Studios up in Santa Barbara, California. Click your heels, Toto. We've got to get home to 10, if you remember her. A lot of these golden age, pioneering age actors and actresses. Bob Hope, Bing Crosby, Abbott Costello, the Marx Brothers. The list goes on and on, folks. My grandfather was a legend, so just so you can get to know me again, that's who I am. And today on the show, we've got a legendary actor, litigator, attorney, Producers Guild, film festival judge, Bruce Nahin. He's got over 300 credits on his IMDB and projects that he's been in. And he is the biggest, greatest litigator for independent films in northern Los Angeles, folks, in the history of the motion picture industry. I like to call him my Uncle Bruce. We have private entertainment gatherings down at the Alta, which is a nice restaurant down in Hollywood. We go there bi-monthly or bi-week. What is it, a couple of times a month?
It's the second Thursday of each month.
Okay, fabulous, folks. Welcome, my Uncle Bruce Nahin, to the show. Welcome, Bruce.
Hey there.
Fabulous. And we've got a bunch of projects on deck that we're going to talk about. I want to talk about your journey in life, all your projects, film festival judging, Producer Guild. There's so many projects that you've been involved with. I'm just going to let you kind of run with it because, over 300 projects on your IMDb. I wouldn't know where to start or stop. So I'm going to let you run with it. Tell us more about it, please.
Well, I think it all started in '76 when I was a co-founder of Chippendales. After I did that, I worked with Death Row for a while. I was now a film commissioner for a while. I do business affairs, intellectual property, clearance work, avid cigar smoker, coffee lover.
Yeah. Yeah, I love those Venezuelan cigars, those got some good cigars, I like to have a good cigar and a nice cigar shop with a humidifier and a nice big leather chair and just kick back, nice cigar, Nothing wrong with that. That's fabulous. Yeah. So let's start out, Bruce, Uncle Bruce, with the journey in life. Your uncle was Stu Nahin of KTLA Sports, legendary sportscaster covered all the Lakers and Dodgers games over the years. I grew up watching your uncle, man. He was great, man. It gave us all a lot of great memories to relish with all our sports heroes in Los Angeles.
He was
a little bit about your family history and kind of what led you to becoming an attorney and your family. It's kind of like it did me, kind of led you in the entertainment industry. Tell them a little bit about.
Well, my father was a sports lawyer. My uncle, of course, was a sportscaster. I was raised off of Crunch on 39th. I'm probably the only Creole Jew you'll meet. That's why I'm wearing Shoot Films, Not People t-shirt today, sweatshirt, on this rainy day in LA. After being a film commissioner, I started working at Paramount Pictures, doing clearance work in business affairs, and that's what I continue to do now.
That's absolutely fabulous, Bruce. You go back so many years in the motion picture industry. You worked on several projects, that people. So many projects that my grandfather was involved with. And kind of hard to find people that, you know, were attached to my grandfather's project because this film dated all the way back to the 1930s. It was early Charlie Chaplin days. My grandfather was, you know, best friends with Walt Disney. He was the Taylor's manager. He was also Mickey Rooney's manager as well, with the drummer boy routine and big band piano that he had. So,
Wasn't Mickey Rooney and Elizabeth Taylor married at one point?
well, I know that he was dating my aunt Marilyn Monroe in 1949. And so my grandfather was always in between Mickey's house and, you know, because, you know, client was Elizabeth Taylor, so we weren't just, you know, doing projects together. We were like a family. You know, we all, you know, shared the same house and ate at the same table. You know, type of entertainment, you know, circle is what we were, like we are, you know. And like Dean Martin from the Rat Pack, he would only work with certain actors like Marilyn Monroe, Judy Garland, Raquel Welch, you know.
Raquel Welch used to be when I was growing up, Raquel Welch was my next door neighbor on San Ysidro.
Yeah, well, you know, Raquel Welch, she did a cowboy and western film that my grandfather cast her in a 1968 film entitled Bandolero, if you recall that. That was a cowboy shoot 'em up western film where Raquel Welch was a gunslinger shooting cowboys down out in front of the saloon at the same film. And then Dean Martin was in that film with her. So that gives you an example. Oh, and another thing about that film, which is a really interesting story that I can tell you, back in the 1970s when my grandfather retired, he bought a piece of property out in Acton, California. And out on the 14 freeway out there, back when it was undeveloped, you know, you go to Acton now and it's all built up now, but back in those days off the 14 freeway, you could see clear as day out there. And so my grandfather, you know, he had this big ornament with a horse-drawn buggy from that film on top of the roof with a Santa Claus and a reindeer attached to it, you know. And I used to ask my grandma, I'd say, you know, Grandma, how did you get it up there? And, you know, they used to keep me when I was a kid. And I'd say, oh, he put it on his back and got it up there. So my mom later on told me that, you know, as a kid, you know, I played with him like that joking. But when I was a kid, my mom told me that my grandma told me, she knows, she says, he has Paramount Pictures come out here with a crane and take that horse-drawn buggy and set it on top of the roof. And then, you know, your grandpa goes up there and passes it down and puts that 25-foot tall Santa Claus and reindeer up there. And so when you were driving by back in those days, it was clear sailing where you could see out there back in the 70s, you could undoubtedly see the house in the freeway. So when you saw that ornament, you know who lived there. But that just happened to be a horse-drawn buggy, or this ornament was the horse-drawn buggy from that film that Dean Martin and Raquel Welch actually were sitting in together in a couple of scenes and things. So that was kind of interesting about Raquel Welch and Dean Martin and that lineage and how she was your next door neighbor. She just passed away recently. God bless her, you know. Gosh, she was such a great actress, beautiful.
Raquel died? I didn't know that.
Yeah, she died there just recently. Yeah, I think was it last year? Sometime passed away.
I knew her daughter Tawny very well.
Yeah, fabulous people, you know, and some people that I know I went to high school with were actually her tax preparer as well. That worked with Raquel Welch, friends of mine I went to high school with. That's interesting up in Locker Center where I grew up. There's so many entertainment families that grew up there back in the golden age. They still live up there.
Well, my ex-wife ran a horse ranch in Agua Dulce, right next to Acton.
Oh yeah, that's up at Vasquez Rocks. So they did
that's correct.
They did a bunch of filming, shooting projects up there. It's my grandfather, Jack. He was the godfather of old school sci-fi practical effects. So if you remember the old Planet of the Apes film up there at Vasquez Rocks, that was my grandfather was the assistant director on Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, was the last installment of the original trilogies of the Planet of the Apes movies there. So they brought him in because he was good at making those masks and wardrobe and all that, set decoration and all that. He's really good at what he did. That's back when art was film. Now it's all pixels and CGI and things. So you don't have that anymore. So they have all these sequels to my grandfather's Viewpoints and Opinions of Planet of the Apes, but they're all CGI and they're not nearly as good as what my grandfather and those teams put together back with the original Planet of the Apes.
What are they in, like episode 6 or something?
Yeah, I know. It's like, they keep, so all these Viewpoints and Opinions for instance, just to give an example, just for one of them that my grandfather did, Planet of the Apes, that's created gainful employment for the entire entertainment community, created tremendous opportunities, and given the studios a great name that they have today, and has created I want to say multi-trillions of dollars in profits in the box office. All my grandfather's original creations, pioneering events that Hollywood has they've sequeled over and over for I want to say the past 100 years, because my grandfather's films date all the way back to the 1930s. So his viewpoints and opinions have been followed by filmmakers to the tune of multi-trillions of dollars in profits in the box office on an international level. And when I say international level, it's because something like Planet of the Apes, that's an international project. That's a film that you can change the language, send pictures to another country, and make more money in the box office. So those are just super flexible projects that just could be sent all over the world,
That's sci-fi and horror are the most overdubbed and released in Europe and Asia and Africa because they're very easy to overdub.
Yeah, they're absolutely fabulous. Like my grandfather is also the godfather of the Marvel Universe, and I'm going to tell you how that developed was. And being a film director, driving into Hollywood every day, Paramount Pictures and that down there. He told me, honey, honey. He says, every day for about 2 years, he said, I saw this guy parading up and down Hollywood Boulevard in Sunset in Captain America uniform with the steel acting like Captain America. He says, that guy inspired me. He says, I've seen that guy for 2 years. I'm going to go out and get that guy, and we're going to do a Captain America film. And so there was a 1934, black and white version, and then another one later going down the line. Two prior to my grandfather's, but they were garbage. Nobody ever watched them. They didn't have any views or ratings. They weren't successful. The very first successful Captain America was my grandfather, Captain America in 1978, starring Reb Brown. I believe Reb is still around. I'd like to get a hold of him and interview him one day if I could get a hold of that guy. He was great, blonde hair, blue eyed guy, big muscles, tan, red, white, blue American, baseball apple pie and Chevrolet type of guy, and every day he was out there in that Captain America's uniform. And so that inspired my grandfather to do the first successful television series, which is, where he brought the comic strip to life on the screen. And it was successful. So from there, that's where the Marvel Universe begins. So if you look at, all of the Avenger posters and things, who's in the middle? Captain America. Because that's where it all started, was in that original canon. And so he told me about how, I said, well, Grandpa, he says, how did you back then get, to do the special effects, him jumping up on buildings and throwing his motorcycle up. By the way, my grandfather designed that red, white, and blue motorcycle with all the fairings and things. And so I asked him, and my grandpa says, well, we used a cane and a rope, and we would tie Reb up to it and jerk him up on top of the roof, and then we would edit out the rope and make it look like he jumped up there. So I thought that was interesting. So that, that was a lot of work they did back then, and it was dangerous. Those are dangerous stunts they're doing. That was dangerous work. So yeah, that's how the Marvel Universe was given birth on film. So my grandfather is the godfather of the Marvel Universe, and that he created the very first Captain America ever in the history of the franchise, giving it birth, which is fabulous. Now you have Iron Man and all these other projects that they have now, which are great, and give everybody great memories to relish. They're successful on the box office. They make plenty of money. They give gainful employment to the entire entertainment community, and it's a tremendous opportunity for Hollywood to keep creating projects.
They're now shooting them all at Pine Tree in UK.
Oh, I thought there were some Marvel Studios in Georgia or something down there.
Yeah, they left Trilith and they moved to Pinewood Studios in UK.
Oh, United Kingdom now. Okay, well, everybody's leaving. Disney gave Mark Wahlberg and Mel Gibson all that money to open up, studios out in Vegas now. So it's like they're like fed up, with these corporate Mongols that are running these studios. My grandfather created pioneering projects to give those studios the great name that they have today. He cast all the icons in films he directed, molding their careers. Of gaining them a star on the Walk of Stars on Hollywood Boulevard with the films that he directed, and to see the industry go into the strife and talk about AI and let's put all the writers and people out of business and things. That disgusts me, because my grandfather, he was there past the people. They weren't with, the type of behavior that is now being conducted by people in the studios. So it's terrible to see that, coming from a family that created all of that. So now that you've got Disney giving Wahlberg and Mel Gibson and those fellows out there in Vegas a bunch of money to create motion picture studios, which is absolutely fabulous. So Vegas is going to be the new Hollywood backyard. So I'm looking forward to, you've got Stallone, you've got Kevin Costner, who's kind of like my extended family, and I'll tell you how that developed. My grandmother was Tippi Hedren's best friend from the Birds with Alfred Hitchcock. And
talking about Acton, Tippi Hedren lives in Acton.
Yeah, I was just out at the Moore Foundation. I don't know, about a year ago. I went out there and I talked to the trainers and took some pictures with them and things. And so they did a film entitled Roar back in the day. They actually leased that property from the comedian Steve Martin, and they created a film called Roar. And then when they wrapped up, Tippi kind of broke up with her boyfriend there and decided she was going to stay there and create the.
I was at a point in history, I was president of the Acton Agua Dulce School District, and her daughter was the most famous graduate of Acton Elementary.
And I've seen Melanie Griffith up in Santa Barbara walking down State Street, and she just, her and her girlfriends, and God, she looks great. I told her who I was. I'm Jack Shub's grandson, and she stopped in her tracks and started to turn around, and she kept going. So, it is what it is. But that was my grandmother's best friend, Tippi Hedren, because my grandfather did a tremendous amount of work out there at the Chimbala Wildlife. They were building a compound for all those cats and wild animals that they have out there. Because once Tippi wrapped that movie Roar, she stayed there, and so my grandfather.
The lions.
Oh yeah, the lions and tigers out there, and that is those compounds that my grandfather helped with. I'm not going to say he built them all, but he helped certainly. Did a lot of work with a lot of people from the motion picture industry out there that helped her build that place. And the architectural structure is pioneering. It's twice the size of any regulatory, any regulatory animal refuge reserve. So it's kind of like a blueprint for people who, want to, animal refuge preserve. They take a good look at that. Well, how do they know how to jack these guys do this? We're going to take a look at that and create viewpoints and opinions which create their own. And I think more actors and entertainers, open some of these wildlife refuges, because animals go through atrocities on our planet. It's terrible what our animals go through. So I think, more of our bigger entertainers would be involved with helping animals and children and things with charities and things like that. Like St. Jude's Children's Hospital, we go to Halloween concerts, every Halloween to raise money for St. Jude's Children's Hospital down there. Madam Tussauds Hollywood Museum. So, things like that are important, for entertainers to get back. We do, and we can. So I believe everyone should chip in and be a part of that project as well.
I seem to recall the wildlife refuge up the 2 is also celebrity funded.
Yeah, just right on between Glendale and Silver Lake in there. I'm trying to think of the name of that one there, but yeah, they've got a couple of them around that are still. And Tippi's cost $1 million a year. It's like $20,000 a month. Got to run that place. So
your listeners might be interested in the Tippi Hedren truth.
Oh yeah,
Tippi Hedren, she ran afoul of Alfred Hitchcock, and she was in a personal services contract. So Hitchcock basically for 20 years kept her from working by sending her a check every month.
Yep. Yeah, he had that. I remember I read Tippi's diaries as well, and had some conversations with her when I was just a young lad. When my grandmother would bring me over there to see the lions, and they had lunch with Melanie Griffith and things. And yeah, it's like I said, Melanie, I'm sure you remember me. We were kids. So anyway, I think that Tippi Hedren was great, but when you read she was a great actress. She was really resilient too. If you read her diary, and she talks
She
about how
she was very involved in Acton Elementary and what they call it, the Acton Agua Dulce High School. That's how I
yeah,
first met her when I was on the school board. And next door to her was a movie ranch. Forget what it was called. A lot of films were shot there right next door to her. Because many a
yeah.
time a sound engineer had to edit out, I guess, the roar of the lions.
Gosh, what's the name of that restaurant right across from those Horse Ranch shoots? Is it called the Recovery House or something like that?
I don't remember. It's been a long
There's a
time.
restaurant right across the street, and they've had like hundreds of film projects shot in there. Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock, all
Yeah, I think it was called Posa. I think the movie ranch on Crown Valley there was called Posa Rosa,
right.
next door to Tippi's place.
Yeah, there's also a restaurant I've been to a couple of times that they've shot a bunch, and there's some Horse Ranch film locations right across the street as well, right up in Canyon Country, right between Canyon Country and Acton, right there.
Yeah, there were a lot of them. That's why when I was film commissioner for North LA County, I got very actively involved in that stuff.
Well, that's where my grandmother, they retired up there because they were good close friends with Tippi, and my grandmother wanted to be close to her friends. So that's where they ended up retiring. My grandfather bought a piece of property in Acton. And so Tippi and my grandmother used to go to a little church up there in Acton that's still there. It's burned down a couple of times over the years, but they
next door to the market.
Yeah, in the downtown square there in Acton. Yeah, there's a little and if Barbara's watching, she still plays piano there.
There's a great restaurant next door to the market. At least it used to be there.
Oh yeah, you're talking about the 49er bar there. Yeah, 49er Bar and Grill. I'll tell you, that 49er Bar and Grill, they've got a leaning tower of diesel burger in there, and I mean it like leans over like that. It's like this tall and that wide. It's a great place to go. They got some really, really good charbroiled burgers in there. With the onion rings, and it's just like this big tower burger. Yeah, it's great. I go in there. When I go in there, I take pictures of places I go when I eat. It's noticed on my Facebook. When I go places and I eat, there are places that a lot of industry people go. It has to do with, like that 49er bar. I've been there before. I've taken pictures of it. I've done films of those leaning tower burgers and things. So I have fun, kind of showing off what my family did, and what I did. I can reenact those events of those, famous places. For instance, like in Glendale, you've got, I just wanted to touch back on Tippi before I talk about the steakhouse down there in Glendale that my grandfather used to take a list of Taylor and B. Martin and everybody, which is Dean on Brand Boulevard, steakhouse, Southwood established. That's what my grandfather did is, Bruce, he was a family guy, and he would take his actors and entertainers out to nice, sit-down steak dinners and things. So, you could shake hands, you knew each other, you were friends, you knew we were good quality people. To sit down and put together a good project. It wasn't like Hollywood is now all tactic and, you're promoting yourself on these electronic websites and, nobody knows who you are before you get out on the set, and then you end up running all kinds of trouble with people's attitudes and viewpoints and opinions once you get out there. And it kind of makes it difficult to work on set. So my grandfather kind of troubleshot that by having his own little group of actors and entertainers, that he worked with, and we were like family. We were to work very well together and make good, iconic projects. But yeah, Tippi, when you go into her diary about Alfred Hitchcock, that was really tough on her because when they filmed that film with the Santa Cruz birds, it was they used mechanical birds, and
that's where when she signed that agreement, that was the personal services, and if you notice, she didn't work after that because he tried to make sexual advances on her, and she rebuffed him. So he blackballed her for 20 years. My office at Universal used to be right next door to Hitchcock's bungalow. And more than once I wanted to run out to the trams and tell them the truth, but I knew I'd get thrown off the lot, so I didn't.
Yeah, well, that was terrible, what he put her through. I mean, they had when you go back in the history and development of the birds, they had those metal birds, and when they filmed it, it didn't look real, so they had to stop the production for 6 months and have a bunch of bird handlers go out and collect for like 6 months, collect all these seagulls. They're dirty, nasty birds, they got beaks and they're hard to deal with and they bite. So they got all these birds all corralled up for like 6 months, and then they proceeded with the shoot again so that they could mix in the metal birds with the regular birds, the mechanical birds, like they crashed into the phone booth scene and crashed into the windshield scene. So they had it mixed in with regular birds so it would look real. And the terrible thing about Hitchcock, what he did to Tippi was, when you go on the history and development of it, he found her. She was an actress who did like a couple of commercials, and that was it throughout, on her IMDb. And he found her and said, "Okay, well, I'm going to sign you for a 7-year contract." And Tippi was a single mother, and she needed the gig, to make money, take care of her kids and her family.
I think it was a 20-year contract.
Was it? Yeah, I thought it was originally a 7-year deal. Maybe.
Well, all I know is when she signed that, that's how she got blackballed, because he owned her exclusively.
Right. Yeah. So and then so he during the filming, he read in her diaries. Poor Tippi, he put because he wanted to create sexual advances towards her, and she told him no. He put her in a room where the bird coming to attack her, and during the filming, he had her had birds tied to her, these seagulls tied to her, and for 8 hours in filming. And these birds were pecking her, and then there's another scene. He had bird handlers throw the seagulls at her for approximately 8 hours of filming. So she had to withstand that. And then,
well, his bungalow up at Universal was really his sexual palace, to be polite.
Yeah, it's interesting to these guys, that did film back then. Your view was predicated on, that type of behavior. It's outrageous.
Well, that kind of behavior is still going on.
Yeah, it does. I'll tell you, but it doesn't. It never was with my family. My grandfather.
I don't know how many women you've got listening to this, but each of them can probably tell you a story of advances. Look at Harvey Weinstein stuff, but it's just not him, her, it, whatever you want to call Weinstein. But
unbelievable.
The sexual advance stuff still goes on. Every woman listening probably can tell you in the chat their own experiences, I think.
Yeah. Those little fine prints and things that they have in contracts as well. I talked to a fellow who was going to get a $50 million contract with Marvin Gaye Studios, of all people, and it was predicated on sexual advances. And he threw away the contract. He says, "Look, man," he says, "I got a wife and kids, man. You're going to shelf my stuff, and this is a $50 million contract. You know what? Here, keep it. And now he owns a bunch of, I think it's marijuana dispensaries he owns. I asked him, I said, you're going to get back to music? He said, "Yeah, Dave, I'd rather just sell weed out here in California." He says, "I make just plenty of money." He says, "But, I threw away a $50 million contract because it's predicated on that." So, yeah, that does go on. I know it for a fact. I know people have gone through it and thrown away big deals because of it, because they weren't going to participate in that process. My grandparents were classy people. My grandfather, was a Taylor manager. He was Judy Garland, Welch, Dean Martin, George Kennedy, Jimmy Stewart, Wonderful Life. The Makers, Andre the Giant, and the $6 Million Man, Lindsay Wagner and the Bionic Woman. He was the creator of all these fabulous television shows back in the day. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea was Puppy. He did, I think it was 39 episodes of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. That was the top secret nuclear submarine that would go discover sea monsters in the ocean and things. So those were great films and television programs of relic, that gave us all great memories, which are absolutely fabulous. So, yeah, my grandparents were classy people. They didn't participate in that type of behavior, and they didn't condone that type of behavior. And that particularly is, why they had a private group of their own. Dean Martin, Michael Welch, Marilyn Monroe, Taylor, Bing Crosby, Bob Hope, Jimmy Durante, um, Abbott and Costello, the Marx Brothers. Those were good classy golden age entertainers. They gave us all great entertainment and great memories to relish. And my grandparents were classy people. I'll tell you, growing up in the house with them, they didn't even get in an argument. I don't think I ever heard them get in an argument my entire life. My grandparents. My grandfather Jack, he was quiet, and but he was great, and he drank too. These guys, I don't know how they did it, but they used to have full bars and catering on the walk back then. And my grandfather was a heavy drinker. He could control and enjoy his drinking. It didn't matter how much he drank. He even told me about how John Wayne used to drink 2 fists of Jack Daniels every day on those sets. But now in motion picture industry, you're clean and sober. You got to be drug tested. Most union things, jobs and things. So, but back then, man, those guys sound like Bogart was making those movies. Those cocktails were real that they were drinking, and they did some magnificent stuff, and you kind of wonder how did they do that? They were all drinking, and partying together, family-oriented type of vibe on set, So, that's just the truth about the golden age. When you look back at the legitimate history and development of it, and what went on the sets of things, that's they had full bars and catering and things, so everybody was drinking whatever you wanted. My aunt had that dry brut champagne that she loved so much. She drank every day. She even had a bath and a couple hundred bottles of it, I think. So that was the dry brut champagne was the stuff that my grandmother would break out on Thanksgivings and Christmases. So the number 5, that was my grandmother's perfume. All the food that Monroe they claimed that she loved, that was dishes that my grandmother served at our table on a regular basis.
I think Chanel was the perfume of choice of most Caucasian women in the 50s.
Yeah, that was my grandmother's stuff, man. So I just wanted to touch on the delicious breeze scene that my grandfather created, Jack Stubbs. He was working in props, one of 2 prop makers on the 1955 film, The 7-Year Itch. And so during the filming, picking out wardrobe and things, director Billy Wilder, he was from Austria, and my great-grandmother was from Austria as well. So my great-grandfather, Oscar Theodore Jackson, had painted a painting of her that you'll see on my cat head in my dress. Well, that white dress painting hung on my grandparents' home for years. My grandfather was custom seeing it every day. And so when it came to 1955 film, The 7-Year Itch, when director Wilder said, Jackie, what do you think about Marilyn? He thought of that painting of her grandmother in the white dress, and he thought that would be fitting. He thought, well, I think we should put her in a delightful white dress like the painting of her grandmother. Classy painting. Stand her on the subway and hat and blow the dress up in the scene, showing her skin and legs, and drive the whole world bananas. And that's what they did. They said, Jack, that's a great idea. We're going to shoot that scene. I'll go in the wardrobe and pick out a dress. So those are things that are going to be involved in the biopic family perspective on Marilyn Forever Monroe that's never been told before. It's going to be a classy, golden age classic film, about my family. They were classic people. All of the icons that they worked with were classy people. They weren't involved in these terrible contracts and things back then. So it's going to be a classic golden age movie. And it's going to be something that people can enjoy and Hollywood can appreciate. People can appreciate. And
I'm looking forward to working on it.
Yeah, it's going to be a blockbuster project. We've got the proof of concept that's going to be shot next month. I'm working on some cinematographers now. The script has been treated and it's ready to shoot. We're still working on a couple of treatments on the script, but it's ready to go. So all we have to do is shoot that and add the proof of concept trailer to my pitch deck, and we'll be all set. We'll be ready to make that film.
I'm excited.
I am too. I'm pumped, and it's taken me all my life to do this. I've worked for 5 years Bruce busting my butt, not asking anybody for nothing. I've done all this by myself with no help from anyone. I'm a one-man show here. And so I'm bringing it to the table, and it's going to be a great film. Once I get that pitch deck ready, and it's ready to be shopped around, people are going to love this. Proof of concept, because it's true, it's legitimate. I can prove it. All you have to do is go to my grandfather's IMDb, Jack Stubbs, Stubbs, and look at his IMDb. There's proof right there, as well as the painting. There are certain things that I can give away and divulge about my family to prove that we are who we are without giving away everything. Like the house that we lived in when she was in our care, and her mother was our hired housekeeper. That house is still standing. It's been remodeled a little bit, but it's still there. So things like that, the locations. I'm not going to tell anybody that. That's my inherited intellectual property. So when we get our funding, I'll be able to add those locations and things to the film, and then and only then will I add those locations, because those are the legitimate. I mean, I lived in that house. I know where it's at. I'm the grandson, so I'll be able to add those things later on. So those are things that can't be stolen from me. They can't be reduplicated, and nobody can produce it but me, because I'm the grandson. I lived in that house, so I know where it's at. I'm not going to tell you till I get my money for the film. So we get the money for the film. It's going to be a classic, golden age, very classy quality project. Like my aunt was. She was classy. She was married to my uncle Joe DiMaggio, one of the greatest baseball players to ever live. That was a great scenario back then. It gave everyone great memories to relish and to watch her and to watch my uncle Joe DiMaggio and their love affair and things that they did. Classy. People liked it. They were models that people in America and the world could follow and say, these are some really classy people. I'd like to be like them. So they gave off a great image. And so that's what's going to be projected in the film. It's that great, classy, golden age image. And we're going to shoot that proof of concept probably close to Christmas, I would think. Bruce, what do you think?
I think it's going to be a brilliant project.
Yeah, well, I've been talking so much, I haven't even given you a chance to talk about yourself. Now I got to get back to Jesse. Okay, and yeah, so Bruce, tell people where they can find you, your Facebook, your Instagram, Twitter, any type of
sure. My
platforms that you have.
Yeah, my Instagram is at Bruce BRUCE Nahin NAHIN. Same with Facebook. And Instagram is at Bruce Nahin. And I'm open to talking to any of you. Feel free to send me notes.
That's fabulous. And you do copyright, you do
I'm an intellectual property guy.
Yeah, you do all that paperwork. So Bruce is doing that for our film, and he can also do it for you. He's pretty reasonable on his prices too. You probably get a great deal from one of the greatest professional, legendary, litigators that's ever been in the business. With a great meanings. And your Uncle Stu Nahin. I mean, I grew up watching him and with all the Laker and Dodger games and stuff. God, he was great. I loved to watch him every night. Him and Hal Fishman at KTLA, they were great. So they gave me great memories. Your family does. My family did. So we're good people. We're good to work with. And we'll, that you can reach out to Bruce. It's bruce.nahin@gmail.com, I think is where people can contact you if they have any type of professional information or proposals.
Yeah, I will leave all that stuff in your message here. So.
Okay, fabulous. Yeah, folks, Bruce Nahin, I did a lot of talking, but we're working together on this project. So, it's us working together. It's going to be our film. It's going to be blockbuster project. It's going to be golden age film. It's going to be a classic film, something people can appreciate. And I think that Hollywood can appreciate. People will love to see because it's the true life history of my aunt and my family that's never been told before. All
right, well, David, I guess this is sign off time, huh?
Yeah, I got Jesse over here. I go over here. Yeah, I guess it'll be sign off time. Okay, and again, station identification break, folks. Hour went by quick. My name is David Monroe. I'm Marilyn Monroe's nephew, actor, soundtrack. I'm an actor, soundtrack, a producer, and a director. I do AI films. I do all kinds of cool stuff. You can follow me on Facebook at David Monroe. I also have another Facebook, it's David Monroe, and then the third Facebook, which is just David Peace. So I have three of them that you can look at. You can see all my reels, all my projects. I've got tons of films on all three of those Facebook, probably 300 or 400 films all in all about me and my life like an open book. You can take a good look at all my projects through my Facebook platform. Everything's open and available for you to readily view about me. My grandfather's IMDB, Jess Tv, STUBBF. All you have to do is research that. And then, of course, you know.
Oh, my IMDB is just Bruce Nahin, Nahin.
Right, and there's only one IMDB there. Yeah, I've only been in about 4 film projects as an actor. Most of this is, I do these television programs, Marilyn Monroe Show, but I haven't even had time to really add them to my IMDb. So when you look at mine, you'll see like 4 or 5 movies on there, which is under David Peace or David Peace Monroe.
Anyway, guys, I think your time's up here.
Yep, we'll have Silvio Seamack was supposed to be on this week. We had a little trouble with our facilitation process as he's in a movie over in Norway right now, but he's a legendary action on camera stuntman and a grandmaster. He also does he teaches Olympic style tournaments, and I believe he just came from the United Kingdom. He was telling me they won about 4 or 5 gold medals on the team over there. He's been in movies with Jason Statham and also Jet Li, the great legendary Silvio Seamack. His film, Angels Fallen, Warriors of Peace, is in fact the #1 film on Amazon Prime right now. You want to watch that. So we'll have Silvio Seamack upcoming next week, folks, and he is going to be a full participant in Marilyn the Truth Forever Monroe. He's either going to be my grandfather or he's going to be my dad. Which he looks like my dad. So we haven't decided yet. But Silvio's going to be a part of the project, and we're going to interview him next week upcoming.
All right, guys.
The trilogy of the creation of this film. Once again, my name is David Monroe, Marilyn Monroe's nephew. You can pick us up by Googling jessfm.ca, www.jessfm.ca.
You guys be blessed. Have a great rainy Sunday,
right,
everyone.
We'll see you next week, folks. Thank you.